but the banks are made of marble with a guard at every door.
If you self-identify as like a rural farmer, can you raise your hand? All right, that's what's up. And if you self-identify as an urban farmer, could you raise your hand? All right. The food justice group at Occupy Wall Street was started by a number of food activists, community gardeners, urban farmers who were involved in the Occupy Wall Street movement, who felt that this movement for true democracy, for justice and transformation of our destructive economic system and a political system that favors the greed of corporations over the needs of the people, needed to talk about food, and we needed to elevate that within the discourse of Occupy Wall Street.
You know what, I'm just sick and tired of being sick and tired. I grew up, as a matter of fact, I grew up on 10th Street and Avenue D. 50-something years ago. So this is sort of my home base, so to speak. And at that time, I knew nothing about food. Only thing I remember is how my parents set the table when I was ready to eat it. But now I live in the Bronx, one of the poorest congressional districts in the country. Yet, I'm only a mile away from the biggest industrial food terminal, Hunts Point, a place where I cannot get that food. But yet, the people in my neighborhood are starving. The people in my neighborhood are the statistics that you hear when it comes to hypertension, diabetes, and heart disease. And I felt, along with many of us here in the city, that something had to be done. And so I tell people, my name is Karen Washington, and I'm an urban farmer. I grow food, I feed people body and mind. I'm out there feeding food. I'm out there growing food because someone told me that food was a privilege, not a right. That poor people don't want to have good food. That poor people can't afford to eat good food. But let me tell you, where do we come from, people? Where do our grandparents and our great-grandparents come from? We were the people that were here, tilling the land, hands in the soil, feeding our people, and now we are the people that are being marginalized and pushed to the side.
I'm in western Kansas. I have a meat company in Colorado Springs, and so you all know that I'm in the Fox News, Rush Limbaugh land. And we hear about Occupy Wall Street not in a good way. And so I say to people, what I see happening with Occupy Wall Street is a transition taking place from people being these ravenous, aggressive, price-shopping consumers transitioning and transforming into citizens. We have failed to enforce antitrust laws which prevent monopoly, the biggest threat to our freedom and our democracy. In the last 30 years, we have lost 90% of our pork producers. In the last 30 years, we've lost over 40% of our ranchers. We've lost over 80% of our dairymen because of big corporate abusive power.
How do we get from where we are now with a food system that's making us obese, that's destroying our soil, the land is being developed, the land is being polluted, the climate is changing, and the people are not being fed properly, to a place where agriculture is satisfying, is regionally oriented, requires less energy, and invites the initiative and innovation of the next generation. The young farmers, we are a real minority. We're not quite the 1%, but I think we're very close, like maybe 1.2%. And but in the last farm census that was done by the USDA, who doesn't always get all the numbers totally right, but they noticed that we went, those of us under 35, from a mere 3% of farmers to 6% of farmers. So in a 2-year period, we doubled our numbers. We have to double and double and double and double. Maybe you would consider joining us out in farming. And maybe you would consider this project of reclaiming our land, reclaiming Main Street, starting businesses, and becoming very practically involved in the everyday logistics of fixing America. Those of you who are organizers of this Wall Street occupation, I hope that you will meet with us, young farmers, and learn about the process of policy change that is critical to make a fair playing field for us as we start these businesses. And join with us as we work to educate America about the Farm Bill, which is coming up next year.
The Hive movement has become the conscience of America. The farmers in America support this movement. They see that the system is not working and it's got to be corrected for our kids. We need protection from the courts so that biotech giant Monsanto cannot sue farmers that want no part of GMOs, that want no part of transgenic agriculture. Amen. Rural America and American farmers stand behind you, and that your courage here in establishing the Occupy movement has 100% support in rural America. The farmers of America are behind you, and keep it up.
Food! 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 A lot of times, the farmer in Iowa doesn't know that the kid in the hood is getting stopped and frisked every day. You know, we have to connect those issues around police brutality, because I go through that every day. My friend's father was just shot by a cop last week. So it's just like, this is what we need to talk about. I want to open this space up so we can create a safe space where we can really build solidarity and connect all these issues that we go through on a day-to-day basis. Because when I look out in this crowd, I don't really see my community. You know, I understand that farmers can barely survive making a living, that they have to work a job outside of the farm. We want to make sure that the foodies understand what the farm workers go through, and that the CIW in Florida, that they're working on a farm and they can't get equal rights. When we talk about land grabs, that is not just land grabs in Sudan, but it's land grabs in the Bronx. Right. Yesterday there was the Morning Glory Farm was arrested. People from occupied Bronx just got arrested yesterday for trying to protect the Morning Glory Farm.
Fracking and how that affects us. It affects us. Those of us who are running farms in different parts of the region are having to compete with the drillers and are then surrounded by the tanks and the effluent and the pipelines and the huge rigs of trucks, the millions of gallons of contaminated radioactive water that are pumped out of these wells, and the fumes that are in the wind when you're trying to grow gorgeous produce. It's not so wonderful. So when agriculture is on the edge, when agriculture is not able to be prosperous, when the big policy of this country is to produce corn for export, corn for soda, low-quality hay for the vista of nice gentry. When the policy of this country doesn't allow for a prosperous agriculture, that's when mining can come. That's when drilling can come.
People ask us, well, do you sell in New York? Do you sell, you need a store in Texas? I says, no, I don't. I need to serve my community with food that's produced in this food-growing region. We don't need to ship food all over the world. That's ridiculous. People around the world need to be able to feed themselves. They don't need Cargill to be a part of the equation. There's a new organization called the United States Farmers and Ranchers Alliance, USFRA, and it's industrial agriculture. Monsanto, ADM, Cargill, all of the biggest food corporations in the world are involved, as well as those organizations that they have captured, like the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. These guys realize that all of you are starting to want to know where your food comes from, that you want to know that it comes from a family farmer. So you know what U.S. Farmers and Ranchers Alliance did? They took our nice family farm face and put it on their organization, and then trademarked the darn U.S. Farmers and Ranchers name. So now we aren't even going to be able to use farmers and ranchers? But this is industrial agriculture, realizing the threat is real. They are losing the war on this food system. You all are figuring this out.
Yeah, I'm going home. Oh, yes.
What is that?
There you go, a laughing liberty.
It's a laughing liberty.
A laughing
What
liberty.
does it say? Healthy, cheap food. Okay.
No one's dancing. What kind of group is this? I thought this was a singing dance.